What is natural law? Understood in the apathetic, it has nothing to do with Darwin's theories on evolution and survival of the fittest, inherent to or having a basis in reality, an existing condition that is both binding and immutable. A set of universal, man-made, binding, and unchangeable conditions which govern the behaviour, consequence of beings within the capacity for holistic intelligence. Natural law governs aggregate free will behaviour choices of entire populations by manifesting the consequences of our choices. The consequences we receive are always dependent on whether we choose behaviours that are moral or immoral, i.e., right or wrong. We have free will right to choose our behaviours. We are not insulated from the moral consequences of our choices. Natural law operates within the unseen or non-physical realm. So, what is meant by natural law? These laws are built into the fabric of reality, just like gravity or electromagnetism. Natural law is not a religion or a belief system. Natural law can be observed and learned, has measurable effects in the world. Therefore, morality is a science. Belief in or faith in natural law is irrelevant because these laws operate like the law of gravity, regardless of belief. Natural law is known as the golden rule or karma, the understanding that as I do to you, I do to myself, which is the law of cause and effect. Effect invariably follows cause. In other words, karma or moral law, as you reap, so shall you sow. The golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The law of attraction, as you think, feel, act, so shall you be. You are sovereign and must respect the sovereignty of others. Now, do human beings have natural rights, inherited rights? What are human rights? It would seem strange to most people that most people couldn't give the answer to that question. A right is an action that does not initiate harm to another sentient beings. A right can be also defined in the apathetic, what it's not. Actions that are not rights are, therefore, wrong behaviours that cause harm to other sentient beings. These immoral behaviours include murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, and willful lying. In further analysis, it can be understood that immoral behaviour are all sometimes versions of theft. Murder is the theft of life. Assault is the theft of another one's well-being. Rape is the theft of sexual free will. Theft is the stealing of property. Trespass is the stealing of a security of one's living domain. Coercion is the theft of choice with violence or duress. Willful lying is theft of necessary information that negatively affect someone's ability to make informed decisions. These behaviours constitute the definition of violence, which is the initiation of harmful behaviour against other sentient beings. These immoral behaviours are transgressions against natural law because they are violations of the inherent rights of others. Natural law of human conduct can be summarized in 2 words. Don't steal. Do human beings have the right to defend themselves against violence? The non-aggression and self-defense principles. The principle of non-aggression is, quite simply, do not harm others. It is morally wrong to initiate harm against another person. The self-defense principle is we have the right to use physical force to defend ourselves against acts of violence conducted upon us. Self-defense is not and should never be regarded as violence. Self-defense against violence. We should hold everyone accountable for the morality of their actions. Everyone has the same rights as everyone else, and therefore there are no exceptions to this rule. If no one has the right to initiate violence against others, no one can delegate such non-existent right to any other person or group and thereby turning a wrongdoing into a right. There are no exceptions to this in government, police, military, or any other social institution. Is government authority morally legitimate? Does legality equate to morality? If a man's laws align with natural law, then it's moral. However, they are redundant and unnecessary. If a man's law is in opposition to natural law, in other words, false and immoral, then it can never be legitimately morally binding upon anyone. Whether something is legal or not doesn't make it moral. All human authority is morally illegitimate because it is not voluntary and is based on coercion and violence. Natural law versus man's law. Does government authority exist in nature? Government is an illegitimate artificial construct that does not exist in nature. The belief that some people have more authority or rights than others is a fundamental cause of unparalleled suffering and death in the world. Authority is and has always been untrue, illusory, illegitimate, and immoral. Authority is illegitimate because it is impossible to delegate a right to someone else that possesses no such right. Is the human condition slavery? Is taxation by government morally legitimate? If the threat of coercion and violence enforces taxation, then it is illegitimate. Taxation should be a choice and should not be coerced with violence. The ingestion of illegal mind-altering substances is a person's sovereign right. People have the right to put what they want into their bodies, even if it is harmful. However, the body is a temple of the spirit or the soul, and poisoning one's body is a crime against one's soul. We can lead a person towards right behavior, towards their own body, but we cannot force others towards moral behavior without breaking the natural law principle of respecting the sovereignty of others. Driver's licenses are a coercive restriction on people's natural right to travel. Government does not have the right to imprison or forcibly coerce a person against their will who chooses unrestricted travel. If a person is using a vehicle in a way that hurts others, then that person should be removed from the situation where they're doing harm. Mutually agreed contracts can be in place about right and wrong behavior and control and ownership of a vehicle. However, those agreements cannot be enforced with violence. Man-made laws that are in opposition to natural law are illegitimate and therefore not morally binding. The only legitimate interactions are those that are voluntary. Therefore, they are mutually agreed upon by all participants. Man-made laws, including those that decree and enact behaviours such as prohibition, taxations, and licensure are not voluntary and are not voluntary in any way. They are commands of compliance that are always backed by the threat of violence or actual violence. Man-made laws are arbitrary decrees of a ruling class that claim themselves as government, who are believed to possess the right to rule. People living under the jurisdiction of government are believed to have moral obligation to obey the arbitrary laws of government. However, understanding that such laws are coercive, violent, and immoral, and conducted to bring human behavior under the will of the ruling elite, we can conclude that the word government is a euphemism for slavery. Slavery exists when individuals claim the body and fruits of the labour of others, making them subject to them through violent and coercive means. Slavery can exist in an overt form, in which people are imprisoned and subject to the confiscation of their labour, or slavery can exist in a covert form, where mental manipulation is used to legitimate or justifies the duress, coercion, or violence that is used to perpetuate the immoral conditions in which these people are unjustly kept. The immoral condition of human slavery persists because the occult ruling class maintains that by manipulating people into a state of ignorance and confusion regarding right and wrong behavior, the difference between right and wrong behavior is objective, meaning that it is not based on perception or the opinions of others. Rather, such a difference in behavior exists in nature independently of subjective human perception or opinion. Morality does not change upon feelings, religion, beliefs, location, time, or preferences of man's law. These things have no bearing on true morality. What is moral in one place and one time? Conscience is the knowledge of whether behavior initiates harm to another, and therefore is right or wrong. The problem is that few people possess the knowledge or are confused about right and wrong. The behavior with the right action is moral, and then wrong action is immoral. Yet, this distinction is misunderstood. People do not get to decide what morality is. The word ignorance contains the word ignore. It is choosing to ignore available information. For example, an adult has access to information on right and wrong, yet chooses to ignore that information. Whereas the word nescience means that there's no reasonable way that a person could know something, therefore might not be subject to natural law. For example, a child might not have the capacity to understand right and wrong, nor have access to necessary information. Where do human rights come from? The inherited rights of human beings are their inalienable universal birthright and can never be granted or removed. Our rights come from nature, meaning that they pre-exist and they're inherent to creation itself. Unfortunately, after thousands of years, people do not understand this eternal truth. It seems simple that human beings should willfully choose to take right action, honour the rights of others, so that they do not themselves be harmed, and treat others with the same respect we expect to be treated, not steal the life, the well-being, the property, the rights, the free will of others. Is not as simple as it seems. True right action is elusive and deliberate. The law of freedom governs the freedom or slavery of people who possess the capacity to comprehend the objective difference between moral and immoral behavior. The natural law of freedom dictates that as society collectively becomes more moral, they collectively become freer. As a society becomes more immoral, they collectively lose their freedom and become more enslaved. The freedom or slavery of an entire society is hinged upon whether society in the aggregate behaves morally or not. Since most people still do not know the difference between right and wrong behavior, they are constantly making judgments and do not align with natural law. Because most people are making judgments that do not align with natural law, but as more and more people act in ignorant capacity with respect to natural law, this behavior is becoming the fundamental source of disorder and chaos in society. When human beings live in harmony with natural law and are therefore moral, they become and remain free. When human beings live in opposition to natural law and therefore become immoral, they become and remain enslaved. In other words, as morality increases, freedom increases. Human freedom is entirely dependent on educated judgments that align with natural law-based morality, which is the objective knowledge of the difference between right and wrong behavior. Moral relativism is the belief that there is no objective difference between right and wrong behavior. Moral relativists believe that morality is subjective, meaning that right and wrong can change with time and location, as well as human perceptions and preferences and opinions. Moral relativism is the belief that human beings may arbitrarily decide what is right and wrong, and that they may become the arbiters of moral and immoral behavior. Humanity needs to recognize that morality is objective and based on morality and not on human perceptions or behavior. There is an objective difference in nature between moral and immoral behavior because moral behavior does not initiate harm to others, whereas immoral behavior does initiate harm. These dynamics exist in and are inherent to the natural world. The prevalence of moral relativism is one of the main factors that solidifies slavery as a current human condition. Knowing the difference between right and wrong behavior determines whether a society behaves morally and, therefore, whether a society is free or in slavery. True freedom can never exist in a society where people believe there is no objective difference between right and wrong behavior. Knowing the objective difference between right and wrong behavior and then willingly choosing right action is the foundational basis of the manifestation of the condition of freedom. If human beings remove that foundation by insisting that there is no objective morality, then they will never be able to manifest a condition of genuine freedom in their lives. Understanding true objective morality will allow people to recognize the flawed belief of the legitimacy of human authority in government. By doing so, human interaction can become voluntarily and free from violence and coercion. If we want a world based on real freedom, we must understand that truth is independent of our perception and that objective morality exists and we can come to know it. If people can learn the difference between right and wrong behavior, humanity can and will remain free. If human beings continue to refuse this knowledge and continue to accept erroneous beliefs such as authority and moral relativism, humanity is going to remain enslaved. Do human beings have free will? All human beings have free will. Free will to choose between moral and immoral behavior. We can use our free will to change our behavior in line with natural law. Alternatively, we can choose immoral behavior by condoning and perpetuating a system based on violence, coercion, and moral relativism. We will continue to march towards slavery and embracing moral relativism, or we will embrace the moral principles of natural law where an individual's rights are protected and respected because we recognize our inherent sovereignty and the sovereignty of other sentient beings. The law of freedom will manifest reality either direction based on our collective moral choices. The science of natural law. The quality of aggregate human behavior and consequences within the physical world determine our experience. Our free will behavior operates within the plane of causality because our behavior is the underlying cause of physical manifestations that result in the world. The consequences and repercussions of aggregate human behaviors manifest upon the plane of effects that constitute the shared human experience in which all of us live. Our aggregate thoughts about morality are transformed into aggregate behaviors of our species, and that behavior is transformed into the resultant conditions and consequences. Truly, we collectively reap that which we sow. Wrongful behavior can never sow goodness and harmony. Right behavior can never constitute a violation of rights. Our behavior creates our circumstances. These dynamics can be readily observed and their workings can be known because of such observations. The study of these dynamics in society constitutes the science of behavioral consequence. All living beings are endowed with self-ownership as an inherent right and therefore possess the natural right to exercise their own free will to live in sovereignty, free from the initiation of harm or coercion by other human beings. These human rights are the basis of morality and are governed by the spiritual law of behavioral consequences. Any violation of these principles are wrongdoings. Chaotic actions in opposition to the aggregate generative self-ordering dynamics of the natural laws as designed by creation itself. These laws cannot be worked around, changed, bent to suit human whims or desires. To choose to observe natural law rights and the rights of other sovereign beings are in alignment with spiritual law, and such choices will create the conditions of freedom that will manifest upon the earth. To choose and conduct wrongdoings in direct violation of these laws will manifest in chaos and suffering. Human behavior is manifest in reality based upon humanity's free will to choose whether or not to act in harmony with natural law. These universal laws of the universe are all that govern humanity.